Welcome to The Details with Elliott, Connie, and Adam Frower. This is a podcast where we examine the intersection between solution-focused brief therapy and current topics going on in the world. And we do this because we genuinely want the world to be a better place. So enjoy and come examine the details with us. I think a really cool thing to talk about, and I think it lies at the heart of psychotherapy, and I think it's something that impacts each and every person, and that is, what is success and how do you achieve it? I think it'd be cool to have a conversation about what exactly is that and how do you make it happen? And I think about success in two ways in my life, and I think about it really, really often. I think the first thing is people have a natural assumption that coming to psychotherapy should solve problems. So for example, if I come to psychotherapy and someone close to me has passed away, I think we have this assumption that the therapy should fix the problem. Like, I'm grieving, so thus I should leave therapy not grieving. But sometimes success is I come to therapy and I'm now strong enough to deal with the hard thing. Success doesn't fix the problem, i.e., remove the grieving, but success in that case is measured by I now feel strong enough that I can go through the grieving process. Sometimes understanding what success is a really crucial and important part to achieving success. And then the second way I think about success is just about goal accomplishment in life or in business or in fitness or in whatever, just living life in a way that makes your goals more likely to be accomplished. So how about we have a conversation about both of those things? One, clinically, achieving success with your clients, but then also achieving success in life.
Even as you started talking about kind of that first category, one of the things that it really highlighted for me was kind of how we view our role within solution-focused therapy, but I think that also transcends to how we view our role in life. I think solution-focused brief therapy, in some sense, turned psychotherapy on its head, that for forever and still, many approaches look at the purpose of therapy in exactly the way that you just laid out, right? Like, somebody comes in with a problem, and the purpose of therapy is to eliminate that problem. And solution-focused brief therapy, in some sense, says we don't interact with or deal with the problem at all, presumably. In some sense, our emphasis is on dealing with people, and through this therapeutic process, they become more capable of dealing with problem. And so I think just even that slight shift from focusing on problem to focusing on people is important in this idea of success, because I can experience success as a person, but my life circumstances may not change at all. But perhaps I'm more capable of dealing with them, or perhaps I have a new perspective about what those things mean to me. Perhaps I engage with the problem differently. And so I think really solution-focused brief therapy does shift how we think about what success is in psychotherapy.
And I don't think we teach it this way, both you and I, or even as a field, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably going to impact the way that I teach it. We get a lot of questions. In fact, we were just talking about this earlier this morning. People will say, I've got a client who has X, Y, or Z problem. Can you give me a question I can ask them that would help them? And I'm always like, but no, I can't, because that's actually not how success is achieved in therapy. There is no this is the question you ask depressed people. This is the question you ask grieving people. This is the question you ask traumatized people. That's not how this works. In essence, when I'm asking what are your best hope from our session, what we're kind of saying is, what would you determine as success from this work? And when people say, what question would you ask? The reason I can't answer it is because I don't know what the person you're talking about would determine as success from this work. So you have to ask them, what would you identify as success from this work? And then a series of really well thought out, well-crafted questions that help them describe what that success would look like once it manifests itself in their life.
That nuance is so important, right? We really focus oftentimes on the value of language and the importance of language. But really, what we're saying when we say this approach is all about language is that this approach is all about the client's language. And what does the client deem as success? I really like how recently we've been talking about, instead of what are your best hopes or what's your desired outcome, in some sense, we've been talking about what transformation are you looking for? And I think transformation is so connected to success, right? That when I understand, when I achieve a transformation, that's success. That says, in some sense, the transformation is complete. But unless we know, like you were just talking about, unless we know exactly what transformation the client is hoping for, then all of the language we would use with the client to describe that transformation is outside of our grasp. We can't have success. They can't have success until we language that transformation according to what fits their circumstances.
Yeah, I wish instead of people asking, so what questions would you ask someone who had X, Y, or Z problem? I wish people would ask, what questions would you ask to help identify the transformation? Or even what questions would you ask to help achieve a transformation? Because when you go into this work, you have to be thinking about the desired transformation that the client is looking to experience. If you're allowing the problem into your mind, you're getting off track. And that's the quickest way to get distracted. And it's the quickest way to get stuck. Like people say all the time, like, I get stuck in therapy. Well, it's usually because you are misunderstanding what your role is in the therapy process.
I think, too, we don't connect it to the idea that you began with, right? We don't view success as total problem elimination. And therefore, what success is for one person may be vastly different than what success is to another person. I may not be interested in achieving my goal through throwing a baseball or catching a baseball, but for a long time, that was part of your goal. So I wouldn't deem that as successful, but perhaps you would have. And so I think the other component of this is, when we think about success, we really also have to eliminate that linear thinking that A leads to B. There's only one pathway to success. I think that when we think about success, there are infinite number of avenues to success, and success may actually be an infinite number of places. So I may not start at the same place, I may not end at the same place, but I can deem my journey as success.
Yeah. I would love to help therapists think about their work. I am under a tremendous amount of stress and uncomfort because I'm displaced from my home. And if I came to therapy and you asked me, what are your best hopes for our talking? I would say, I would really like my home to be better. And I would really like to feel more stable and secure. But the truth is, what I actually need is to build up the resiliencies to go through this hard phase of my life, because my home is not going to be repaired tomorrow. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I have to deal with the difficulty, and I have to feel strong enough and capable enough to get through this difficult thing. And we have to move away from this idea that it's my job to solve a client's problem, because the way people get stuck is Elliott comes to therapy and someone asks me, what are you best for talking? And I say, I just want my house to be fixed. And then the therapist is like, ooh, how do I ask a question that helps the house be fixed? Or how do I ask the question to help the client shift from focusing on the house to focusing on something else? And the truth is, you just have to say to me, and like Chris Iveson is brilliant at this. I think you and I've gotten pretty good at it. But like, you have to be able to say things like, and if your home became fixed tomorrow, what difference would that make to you? Oh my gosh, I'd finally feel secure, and I'd feel comfortable, and I'd feel grounded. And then you ask a question like, suppose you woke up tomorrow and your home is even more damaged, and you got a phone call from the contractor saying it's going to take even longer to fix it. what would you notice let you know that you still had that grounded, secure feeling and it was no longer attached to how soon your home would be fixed? So, in a way, the solution focused question has to contain the problem, but it also has to contain your strength and your resiliencies. And that is actually how we achieve success in our work.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. I really like the way that you described that, because as you were talking, one of the things that came to my mind is oftentimes we view success as like accomplishing a certain task or something being completed, right? In your case, like your home is finished, but you just did something really powerful and you said, okay, so what difference would it make, right? And then you get that it would make me feel happy, it would make me feel satisfied, it would make me feel peaceful again. And so in some sense, it's those internal characteristics that we're striving for. It's not, success is not an outward attainment of something. And so you did this thing in your language, you took, not only is the current situation bad, but let's make it even worse. But use those characteristics that you just described, you still hold on to those in the midst of that worse situation. What tells you that you are now able to deal with something even worse? And I think what that does is it shifts it from an outside achievement to an internal state of being. In some sense, success is about becoming something, not achieving something. I think that if we could help people in psychotherapy to understand, we're helping people to become something, not achieve something. Now we're getting closer, I think, to what solution focused is really all about.
Adam, I think that what you just said is huge. We're helping people to become, not to achieve. And I think in our society, and this will probably shift it to like accomplishing success in our lives. I think in our society, we measure success based upon finance or material objects. Like, I'm more successful because I have a 4-car garage, or I'm more successful because I have a expensive jewelry, or I'm more successful because I have a big bank account, or I'm more successful because I have a big house. I think we have to think about goals or achievement or success in terms of what and or who we are becoming. And we have to think about how we can do that. I often talk about my dad, and he wasn't the warm and fuzziest dude you ever met. And he had a lot of material things. He had a nice job and some of the things that you would measure materialistically. So growing up observing that, like an unhappy man who possessed a nice job and material things, I kind of detached success from material things, and I wanted to be happy. I was aware that I was in an environment devoid of happiness and I wanted happiness. And I started thinking about who are the happy people in my life. And the custodian at my high school completely changed my life. Now, just to paint a picture of Jeremiah, we called him Maya without his permission. We were just like, Maya, we picked on him a lot. He was the kind of guy that you never, I'm talking 4 years every day going to this school. You never saw him without a smile on his face. He walked down the hallway like he was like strolling through the most beautiful park. And no matter how much we picked on him, he never got down. He never got retaliatory. He just was always happy. And obviously, when I went to high school, I was 13. And when I left high school, I was 17. So a maturation process took place. And I remember towards the end of my last year of high school, I was sitting in the cafeteria and I asked him, I said, Jeremiah, and I can remember this like it was yesterday. I said, man, I've been in the school for 4 years and you always have a smile on your face and you always look happy. How do you do that? And he said, the key to life is finding your purpose and living in your purpose. And he said, I believe in education. I didn't think like school was for me. Like, I didn't enjoy school, but I believe in education. And I realized you kids need to come to a clean, safe place. And I take pride and I contributed to your education by making sure this school was clean and safe every single day. That is my way of contributing to your education environment. And it makes me happy.
And he said, I learned long ago that happiness is not money or materialism. Happiness is being at peace with where you are and contributing to the lives of others. And I thought about that, man. My little 17-year-old brain, I thought about that. Later on that fall, I went to college and my dad was like, you're going to go to college and you're going to get a degree in finance because that's what you need to make money with your college degree. And I went to college, and if you know me, you know, I don't like money. I don't like numbers. I don't like math. Like, these are not fields that I would enjoy. And I went to college and I met with my academic advisor. We were talking about what my major would be. You know, I've been in college like literally like 2 days, like the first meeting you have, and we're talking about what my major would be. And I thought about Jeremiah, and I remember thinking, I'm interested in people, I'm interested in the brain, and I picked my major to be psychology. Looking back is one of the best decisions I ever made. And I wish I could get a hold of Jeremiah 20 years later. I wish I could tell him how transformative just observing him was over those 4 years. Like, people often ask me who's the happiest person I ever met. And I still tell them the custodian at my high school. I never saw that man without a smile, without whistling. He greeted us. He remembered our names, never said and or did anything rude or inappropriate. You know, I see these videos on social media now, and of course, I graduated from high school in 1994, so of course, social media didn't exist then. But I see these videos now of like an elementary school class will all write thank you cards for the custodian at their school, and then they record the custodian comes into the room and they give him the cards. And I wish we could have done something like that for him. But to me, that's the key to success, is identifying what in your soul, what in your heart, what in your being leads to success. You know, I'm in a place right now in my career where I'm surrounded by some people who have huge business success. I mean, some of them 7, 8 figure businesses. Some of the people that I get to be in touch with now because of the work that I do are massively successful. And I can honestly tell you, not one of them was money their goal. Their goal was always impact and purpose. And a great example of that was Bill Gates. So while he was the richest man in the world, somebody asked him how he became the richest man in the world. And he said it was completely by accident. He said, I fell in love with computers, and I fell in love with personal computers. At that time, a computer was so big, it would take up like a room. And Bill Gates happened to go to a school that purchased, when he was in high school, they purchased like an early model of a personal computer that like sat on a desk. And he said, I fell in love with personal computers, and I wanted to put a computer in every home because I just thought they were so cool and everyone would love and benefit from these things. And he said, it never dawned on me that if I succeeded in putting a personal computer in every home, it would make me wealthy. My goal was to put a personal computer in every home. The byproduct was wealth. And I can tell you, I spend a lot of time these days surrounded by people with 7 and 8 figure level success in their business. None of them ever talk about finance. They all talk about the lives they want to change through whatever it is business that they do. So having a purpose-driven mission in your life or in your business is such a key to success that I wish I could let everybody know.
Yeah, I mean, you just said some really profound things. I think so much of success also comes down to perspective. One person's success can look like another person's failure or vice versa. I'm just thinking about Jeremiah, and if we marked success as job achievement or income level or fame and fortune or those kinds of things, Jeremiah failed. But if we understand what Jeremiah's expectation was, what his goal was, right? He said, I want to contribute meaningfully to education. Just in the 4 years you were there, right? He impacted thousands of people's ability to obtain an education, a worthwhile education. And so perspective, understanding what the definition of success is, makes all the difference in whether or not success is achieved or not. And I think kind of taking that back to solution focus, we can't define for our clients what success is. We can't tell them that they need to do certain things, because then they're moving toward our definition of success. I think that's one of the reasons that getting a description is so valuable and so important, is that it helps them to have a really clear perspective on what success means. The other thing that I think is so valuable in what you were just talking about is whether success is being a custodian at a school, or whether that is being the leader of an 8-figure business. Either way, there are byproducts of success. And typically those byproducts are happiness, are satisfaction. But sometimes those byproducts result in money. But I think whether or not money is the byproduct, when we achieve success that's consistent with our personal definition, we find happiness, we find satisfaction. It reminds me too of all of the things that we've collectively been going through as a society, right? This last year and a half with COVID and all of the things that have been going on with COVID, we have each, in some sense, had to deal with disappointment. We have had to, some of us, significant events in our lives, like graduations or weddings or things like that, have either been altered or postponed. So if we were marking success as the achievement of a particular ceremony, we would be disappointed. We would feel like failures. For other people, those moments of disappointment might be the loss of a loved one, or being sick, or not being able to travel to visit people that you love, being separated, being isolated. If we viewed success, again, kind of as that external thing happening, or being able to be in the same space as someone, we've had a year and a half of letdowns, of lack of success from that perspective. But if you take the example of Jeremiah and you think, I want to impact education, I want to impact people, then each of us in the midst of this challenge and difficulty, we can readjust how we do that, right? We can adjust our perspective on happiness. And I think as I'm listening to you, as I'm thinking through this process, I think in some sense, success oftentimes is the ability to adjust our perspective. We may need to let go of a particular outcome, and we may need to hold on to flexibility. We may need to hold on to a change in perspective. I had a niece when she was young that she really loved playing soccer. She was an excellent soccer player, and she really wanted to become an elite soccer player. At one point in her life, she broke her femur, and this then necessitated that she wear a cast from the ankle of her right leg all the way up to her waist was a cast. And then the cast actually went across her pelvis and down to her knee on her left leg. And then there was a bar between her right leg and her left leg that kept her right leg completely immobilized. She could not move. And you think about, for somebody who is thinking about success in becoming an elite athlete, an injury like this could considerably alter perspective, right? And be like, now I can't be a soccer player. Well, one of the things that happened over time is that she was a kid when this happened. And one of the things that she quickly figured out is that she could get anywhere she wanted to go by hopping on her left foot. So for a few months, she just hopped from place to place on the foot that was not her dominant foot. And her dominant foot was her right leg, which is completely immobilized. And because of this bar that went between the two legs on her cast, her right leg was kind of suspended up and behind her. So it wasn't even that like she could like hold her right foot and let herself balance. It was behind her and kind of altered her center of gravity. But she very quickly figured out I can hop anywhere I want to go. And she used to challenge people to hopping contests. We all had to hop, and I would cheat and I would use my dominant leg and I'd be like, I'm going to hop on my right foot. And she had to hop on her left foot. And very quickly, she could beat anyone in a hopping contest of any distance. It could be a short distance or a far distance. It did not matter. She would win. After she got her cast removed, then she walked with a significant limp, obviously, because her right leg had kind of deteriorated and her bones and muscles were not strong anymore. And we thought, no matter if she wants to get back to soccer or not, this limp will get in her way. Well, it was amazing to watch her just learn to rebalance. And she went to physical therapy, and the physical therapist helped her to begin to shift her weight back again to her right leg. But one of the things that happened is that soccer actually became even a bigger strength for her, because instead of relying solely on her dominant leg and shifting kind of all of her footwork and all of those things to that dominant leg, she now became very capable of utilizing both legs equally. And so she had a leg up. She had a leg up on competitors because she had then been able to practice and learn skills with both of her legs. And I think sometimes what we think of as a setback, or we think of something that is going to impede success, if we actually shift our perspective, if we actually work on it, it actually becomes a success of its own, right? That she could win these hopping contests. That's a success of its own. But in the end, it also made her a bigger success at what she wanted to become. We have to shift our perspectives. We have to be flexible. We have to realize that along the way, we're probably picking up skills that will help us in our overall journey.
Yeah. And the other thing that you made me think about is success sometimes moves. What you identify as success will sometimes move. And sometimes just through maturation. Like when I was 19, I totally would have thought success was like having a cool car. But at 44, I don't think about any of that stuff. I just want to be like a good person. I want to make a difference in people's lives. And I want to impact people in the field of psychotherapy positively.
If we as solution-focused therapists, if we remember that what we're asking people when we say, what transformation do you want? What desired outcome do you want? What success do you want to have? We're simultaneously asking them, if you were able to pass that legacy to somebody else, what would you have become that influenced other people so positively?
You use the word become like 1,000 times as you were talking. When you're using solution-focused brief therapy, people should start conceptualizing. You're not asking your clients what they want. And in a weird way, you're not even asking your clients what they want to achieve. What you're asking them is, who do you want to become? We have a colleague and real good friend. Her name is Raya Ghul. And Raya Ghul gave a talk, a TEDx talk a few years ago. And she said in this TEDx talk that instead of being referred to as human beings, we should actually be referred to as human becomings. And that stood out to me as you were talking. So to me, that's really success, is thinking about who am I becoming and how do I become with a level of intentionality that's connected with the things that are meaningful.
Well, look, Adam, once again, this podcast was brought to you by the Solution Focused Universe, which is the largest online training community dedicated to the solution-focused approach and the growth of professionals interested in mastering the solution-focused approach, and brought to you by Solution Focused Notes, which is the only online electronic health record system dedicated to solution-focused professionals, where they can find templates to use treatment plans, progress notes, intake forms, everything you need to run a practice electronically, calendar, your charting system, and all of it tailored to the needs of solution-focused professionals.